Adolf Hitler is one of the most conflictive and hated historical figures. He ruled Germany during the period known as the Third Reich, in which he waged one of the most violent and bloodthirsty wars against the Jewish population and sought to expand Germany's power throughout the continent. Naturally, this earned him many enemies who dreamed of cutting off his head and nailing it to a pike. Welcome to History Facts. Today, I'm going to tell you about Adolf Hitler's last hours and everything the dictator had to go through as punishment for his crimes. So, let's get started. Living underground. The Führer's last hours were undoubtedly dramatic. As the army approached the bunker, Eva Braun and Hitler tried to pretend that nothing was happening, as if they were a couple of great actors. However, fear could be felt in the air. While Eva Braun walked among the offices wearing elegant hats and dresses, Hitler looked desperate and nervous, and could be seen ranting through the corridors wearing food-stained shirts. It was the last few days of April 1945, the last days of Hitler and his beloved wife. Loyal to the end. According to surviving witnesses, Eva Braun had many opportunities to escape. Still, she decided to stay by Hitler's side until the end, ignoring the advice of those close to her and preferring to accept certain death rather than betray him. From the moment she descended into the bunker, she knew she would die, a feeling she had already experienced in her two past suicide attempts. Her first attempt was in 1932 when she shot herself in the chest with her father's pistol to get Adolf's attention. The second attempt occurred 3 years later following an overdose of barbiturates. By the end of 1944, while in Munich, Eva drew up her will, bequeathing some property, jewelry, and paintings to her family and friends, and prepared to follow Hitler during the collapse of the Nazi Party. Everyone was escaping from the bunker except Eva, who went in to accompany her beloved to the end. One of the people who tried to stop her was Foreign Minister Joachim von Ribbentrop, who did his best to convince Eva that she should leave Berlin. Sadly, it was too late to stop her. On April 22nd, Hitler had a more intense fit of rage than usual, but after the anger came calm, and he surrendered internally, knowing that the war could not be won. That same day, Eva wrote a letter to a close friend bidding her farewell and telling her of her impending decision. She knew that all that was left for them was to commit suicide. Between blood and dust. Near the early hours of Sunday the 29th, something unusual happened in the bunker. Hitler had just written a political and personal will in which he stated that he wanted to marry Eva Braun immediately. He ordered one of his close associates to find a civil registrar to celebrate the wedding amid the storm of blood and gunpowder that surrounded Germany. Many people had wondered why Hitler wanted to marry when he had already decided that he was going to commit suicide. According to his secretary Traudl Junge, he chose to marry the only woman who, after many years of true friendship, had traveled to a besieged city on her own to share his fate. How could he not want to die beside her as her husband? Other versions affirm that besides rewarding Eva's love and loyalty, he wanted to formalize the bond he had kept hidden for years. To understand this, we have to go back to 1944, a year before the war's end, when Eva Braun married a military officer exceptionally close to the Nazi officer Himmler, Hermann Fegelein. From that day on, she began to be seen at public events as the general's companion. According to people close to Adolf, it is suspected that this marriage was arranged to allow Eva to attend such official acts. Until death do us part. Before taking his own life, the Führer decided to bequeath most of his belongings to the state, and he gifted many of them except for a collection of paintings intended for an art gallery he wanted to open in his hometown, Linz. He also left several personal objects to his mother-in-law and the rights to his only book, My Struggle, to Eva Braun's brother on the morning he married her. Considering that the wedding took place in a bunker inhabited by people terrified of death, it would not be crazy to say that the ceremony was not precisely romantic. The witnesses at the wedding were the Nazi Party's Minister of Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, his wife, and the head of the party and Secretary of the Chancellery, Martin Bormann. Also in attendance were his secretary, Traudl Junge, and his trusted cook, Constanza Manziarli. And of course, Adolf Hitler and his dazzling bride dressed in an elegant black silk suit. After the guests had assembled, they went into the bunker's map room where the civil registrar, Walter Wagner, was waiting for them. There, the couple swore to be of Aryan descent and free of hereditary diseases, as dictated by Nazi racial law, before sealing their union with a kiss. Curiously, Eva Braun was about to sign the marriage certificate with her father's surname, but she crossed out the B and signed as Eva Hitler. That was the only document she signed with her new last name. The Red Wedding. After the ceremony came the party, which the last remaining generals joined in the bunker, Wilhelm Burgdorf and Hans Krebs. Yet, there was no orchestra, and the only music that could be heard in the background was the cannon fire of the Red Army approaching the Chancellery. Behind their elegant clothes and forced smiles, each guest carried a suicide poison pill in their pockets. Nevertheless, they tried to ignore the situation and enjoy the day. The women kissed Eva, who proudly asked them to call her Mrs. Hitler, while the wedding attendants congratulated the couple. All of them except for one person, Traudl Junge, Hitler's secretary. Little did Traudl know that she would become a key player in helping us understand Adolf's last hours. Months later, Traudl would testify at the Nuremberg trial that she could not congratulate the couple. How could she be happy for them, knowing they would die in a few hours? No matter how much champagne there was, that celebration for Traudl was not a wedding. It was a funeral, and she was right. The end of Adolf Hitler. Hitler's last hours were utterly intense and devastating. He had gone from dominating vast territories and a large army to seeing his control and power reduced to a tiny bunker. Desperation and madness had transformed him into an unstable being who saw traitors where there were none, and who found it incomprehensible that people were willing to abandon him. Thus it was that during one of his fits of rage, he ordered the shooting of Hermann Fegelein, his new brother-in-law, after he had returned to Berlin to try to take Eva with him, telling her that the war was lost and that she should not tie her fate to Hitler's. However, Eva's mind was already contaminated. Therefore, it is possible that she told her husband about the situation and that both decided to assassinate Hermann Fegelein. The clock kept ticking. The only thing the people who remained at Hitler's side could think about was death, when Hitler, Eva, and the 6 children running around the bunker would die, and when each of them would be killed. Each second, the feeling that they had no escape became more real, until one day suicide went from being seen as a punishment to being the most merciful option. On April 30th, 1945, Magda Goebbels passed Hitler in a corridor and begged him not to rush. However, Hitler looked at her discouraged and kept walking. His decision would cause Magda to become the mother of the army's 6 children found dead in the bunker. Hitler lunched with his wife and secretaries in silence, accompanied by the sound of the bombs exploding on the surface, until he could bear it no longer. He told his doctor to approach in the softest, most monotone voice possible and, with a lump in his throat, asked him to provide a cyanide pill for his dog, Blondie, whom he loved more than Eva Braun. The dog died within seconds. After that, he retired to his room with his wife, to whom he gave a pill to commit suicide, and then he swallowed his own and shot himself to death. 15 minutes later, the Führer's personal assistants found their bodies, and his death marked the end of the Nazi Germany era. That's all for now. See you in the next video with another interesting topic.